Believe it or not, we do have some favorite automations for email marketing. We're going to cover them today. I'm Jamie and he's James, and we're from the Inbox Club. Let's talk automations.
Yeah, my favourite topic.
Your favorite topic. And for the longest time, I know you were obsessed with trying to find ways of generating like passive income, right?
It's a dream.
Basically doing as little work as possible for as much money as possible.
Yeah, that's why I started an agency.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the beauty of like in this new age with AI, we're not talking about AI that much today, I think probably on purpose because it's being taught to death at the moment. But
yeah,
with AI and specifically what you can automate in your workflows, that's becoming a possibility, right? And with what I love about automation is that you can make money whilst you sleep, like literally with automation and email marketing.
Yeah.
And that doesn't matter if you're a e-commerce brand or if you're selling courses or if you're an agency like us that wants to run a newsletter. It will be doing work for you without you having to spend any kind of bandwidth on or even thinking about it. That's why I love automation so much.
Yeah, absolutely, agreed. I think automations are not only great for you as the email sender, but as we've already discussed in another section, they're also great for the recipient because they, without a huge amount of input from you, give the recipient a more personalized experience, a relationship with your emails that is more bespoke to them. So when automations are used smartly, everyone wins. It's not just, and there's a way that you can do automations that still makes them feel personal. And I would go as far as to say that if you're doing automations really well, they should be the most personal element of your email marketing, and your campaigns that you send off maybe can afford to be a little bit more generic.
Yeah. And obviously this ties in really well with segmentation, which we already covered. So we're kind of going over some of the old ground here. But in terms of where you're segmenting or even tagging your audience based on traits or demographics or behavior, automation is the execution of using that data, right?
Yeah.
It's the front end of it. It's the customer facing face of it. So the reason it's so important is because we said this before about mapping out the customer journey and mapping out the touch points of that, and email marketing being the vanguard of those touch points. This is where automation comes in. You don't then have to spend time, manually sending these campaigns to the people when they need to hear them. And ultimately it's about getting the right message to the right people at the right time. And that's why it's just a beautiful thing, automation. Right?
Yeah, and in tangible terms, what this can mean for an e-commerce store, for example, is that 50% of their email attributed revenue we'd like to see coming from automations.
Yeah.
And usually we find that there is a disparity. I think it's normal and fair enough that anyone new to email marketing will place their emphasis first and foremost on campaigns and how good they are. And of course, that's great. Campaigns are the other half of this coin, so incredibly important in and of themselves. But automations are often neglected. And as you said, and it would be worth reminding me, I think, automations can be amongst your most engaged with emails, as much as maybe we like to see campaigns as the flagship emails that we're sending out. Your welcome series is going to be more important than any one-off campaign you send. Abandoned cart emails can recover as much as 25% of lost revenue if they're done well, sometimes more. So these are tangible examples of why automations, they're not just kind of nice in a fluffy subscriber experience way. They will put money into your pocket.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the figures are worth repeating on that as well, because for e-commerce stores in particular, we're aiming to get 50% of the entire store revenue to be attributed to email marketing, right? And of that 50%, we want half of that to be from automations, or as Klaviyo calls them, flows.
Yeah.
And I'm no good at maths, but even I can work out what 50% of 50% is, right?
Yeah.
So for me, you can't sleep on automation because it's doing all of that wonderful work for you. And yet it's not set and forget, but it almost is, right? You set these things up and it will work for you in the background automatically. And
yeah.
Just for me, it makes so much more sense than having to you sit down at your keyboard and to hash out these campaigns and rely on 100% of your email attributed revenue to come from campaigns because it's so labor intensive.
Yeah. In terms of where to start, they're also really easy to start implementing too, because as with segmentation, your email service provider can do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. There will be pre-built flows already in your email service provider that it offers that you can use as a starting point and start populating from there. Of course, you might want to add your own tweaks. You know, they'll have things like time delays that you might want to change and certain touch points that you may want to add. But fundamentally, they'll give you a starting point if you're unfamiliar with automations that will put you well on your way to starting to automate a lot of your email outreach.
Yeah,
and then you're right, how much you want to invest after that is sort of up to you. You might notice that maybe they're not performing as they should. And again, I would aim for that 50-50 split between automation and campaign revenue generation. If you find that maybe your automations are only doing 20%, you could think about adding some more. You could also do some testing within the automations you currently have running and have a look to see how they're performing. So, of course, we can always iterate and improve once those automations are set up.
Yeah, it's a great point. For me, there are some takeaways here that I would like anyone listening to take away. Is when you think about automation, don't think about it as a singular email in each automation. Think about making them a series, because a series of emails will work. And there are statistics that I haven't prepared for this, but there are statistics to show that that they don't lose their potency until after email 3 and sometimes 4. So that gives you three or four opportunities within one automation. So that might look like a welcome series. It might look like an abandoned cart series.
Yeah.
And we've mentioned these two because these are the highest converting automations for e-commerce brands. I know it's boring to talk about the same automations, but there is a reason for that, because they make the most money. And that's what we're here to do for e-commerce brands, right?
Yeah.
So consider making them a series. Don't go longer than 4 would be my recommendation. Maybe even the 4th one is too far. But this leads me on to the next takeaway, which is to A/B test, right? We've already talked about testing, but A/B testing within your automations is super important. Don't just set and forget. There is an element of set and forget, but you need to be optimizing and continually iterating your automations as well. And yeah, just don't sleep on automation, because it's going to be, it makes sense for you, right? It's extra money for almost less work.
There's definitely a pun somewhere in there about not sleeping on automation, but letting it whilst you sleep or something.
There we go.
We'll workshop it.
We'll workshop that and have that ready for when we do our next podcast episode.